Hey, this is Seeing Detail. I'm Chris. This is MMA for you. I'm going to be doing my post-fight analysis for UFC Fight Night 35. Sorry, it's a little pretty late. Just had a lot of stuff going on. A lot of stuff to do. So I couldn't get to this right away. But overall, as far as this card goes, I thought it was a pretty solid card. The prelims were pretty good. There weren't a lot of finishes, but the fights were still pretty entertaining. A lot of prospects really, I guess in a sense, made themselves a bit known here. A lot of UFC first-timers like Louis Smolka looked really good against Aptikan Oskalik. Benil Darius beating Charlie Brenneman. Good win there. Elias Silverio looks like a dark horse prospect at lightweight, beating Isaac Valley Flag. So, you got some good guys here. And other guys like Brad Tavares, who's probably going to make a step up in competition after this. Probably Yoel Romero as well. Good card overall. Bonuses, Rockhold got knockout of the night. Cole Miller got submission of the night. And Yomero and Brunson picked up Fight of the Night honors. As far as my picks go, not too bad. 7 out of 12. Personally, I thought Dustin Ortiz should have got the nod over Moraga. I watched it actually twice, though, and I think Moraga did more damage in the third than Ortiz did top control, to be honest with you. So it's not a robbery or anything of that nature. And then some other notes. Hawaiians, man. Brad Tavares, Louis Smolka doing really well in the UFC so far. In the Singapore card, you had Russell Doan getting a win. You had Dustin Kimura and Max Holloway all getting wins. The Hawaiians are really, doing really well. They have a style that's really, they're really rangy. I kind of noticed that. And a good amount of them have some pretty good ground games as well. So let's get right to it, though. Luke Rockhold beat Konstantinos Philippou by TKO body kick in the first round. Really good showing from Rockhold, and this is the guy, coming off the loss to Vitor by the spinning heel kick and follow-up punches. It makes you question how good Luke Rockhold really is. Then you see a fight like this, and it's like, oh yeah, man, this guy's pretty good. And it's very interesting because he's a very fun and interesting entrant into the top of the division. He's already there. Now he's back, there, and it'll only take like 1 or 2 good wins for him to get a title shot. So there's a lot of interest in Luke Rockhold right now. If he ever fought Chris Weidman, I think it would be a pretty interesting fight. I remember against Jacare, he showed good takedown defense and good ability to get back to his feet when taken down, and he fights at range. So in that sense, from a stylistic standpoint, I think he'd be a pretty tough opponent for a lot of guys. I think Vitor would probably beat him up again, to be honest with you. He caught out Vitor again. I was looking at, I think it's Conor Rubish's breakdown of the Vitor versus Rockhold fight, and I was like, man, Vitor is just, he knew what to do. He was always one step ahead of Rockhold in the stand-up. There's the whole TRT thing and whatnot, but that type of instinct, I don't know if you can really teach. He was noticing that he didn't defend against his lead hooks really well until like the third time he did it, and from there he already adjusted. Vitor did. So that was really interesting because I wouldn't be able to see that at first glance watching those two fight. He also mentioned Michael Bisping as well, which actually wouldn't be a bad fight either. But what's circulating right now is that Bisping is most likely going to fight Tim Kennedy at the Ultimate Fighter Nations finale. Rockhold versus Bisping would be a cool fight. Rockhold Kendi, I mean, we saw it for 5 rounds. Rockhold won a pretty clear-cut unanimous decision. Not too interested in that. He could get the winner of Jacare versus Carmon, which is actually a very interesting fight. It'd be a good rematch. I thought their first fight was pretty close, and I think Jacare has made some improvements since that fight, especially in his stand-up. And, of course, there's Machida versus Musashi. Very interesting fight for Rockhold as well. So there's no shortage of potential challengers for Rockhold in the top of the division once these guys have fought each other. And honestly, like Machida, Musashi, Carmon, Jacare, I mean, that just happens next month. So, it's not like he'd have to wait that long for those fights to happen. With Philippou, I don't know if he can stay in the top 10 for very long. He has a pretty one-dimensional skill set. He's kind of an inside boxer. His takedown defense is solid, but, Carmon managed to take him down a lot. He could get someone coming off a loss, like a Mark Munoz, maybe Alan Belcher if he decides to stay at 185. Or maybe the loser of Bisping versus Kendi would be good as well. But yeah, overall, good showing from Luke Rockhold. He uses his kicks really well. And he could be, and he's really tall too, he could be a big problem for a lot of guys in the division. Okay, next fight after that, Brad Tavares beat Lorenz Larkin by unanimous decision. I've been saying it for a while now. I still say it now. Brad Tavares is a dark horse prospect in middleweight. I think he's only like 25 or 26 years old. Still young. I think he's only 3 or 4 years into his pro MMA career. So, there's still time for him to develop. He's very good. I mean, that's the thing with him. Offensively, he's a good fighter. He's very fundamentally sound. Defensively, he's a good fighter as well. His takedown defense is solid, and his offensive grappling isn't that bad as well. He took Larkin's back either once or twice in this fight. And, I like what I see from him. I think the thing that hurts Brad Tavares, though, is he needs to get some more finishes. He needs to get some more knockdowns. I mean, it looks like he has the skill. I mean, it looks like, to me, what it looks like is like an early, like when Machida came into the UFC and he kept just getting decision after decision, It kind of looks like that with Tavares. Or like Tyron Woodley when he was just having all these decision wins. And all of a sudden it's dang, he's knocking dudes out, I'm hoping that with Tavares, things, he cuts that corner, and it starts to really finishing opponents. One thing about Tavares, unfortunately, is that his fights aren't very memorable. I mean, he fought Bubba McDaniels and won the decision, and it's just he has very unmemorable fights. He tends to coast sometimes too if he's up 2 rounds. But nonetheless, I think he's on a 5-6 fight win streak. I mean, he needs to step up in competition. There's no point in the guy fighting some mid-level guy. Or a prospect, you can give him Luke Barnett, Kyle Magalesh, or someone like that. There's no point. I mean, he's beaten guys of that level now. It's time for him to step up. Maybe Tim Bosch would be a good fight for Tavares next. The winner of Bisping versus Kennedy. More Kennedy. Kennedy versus Tavares would work. Bisping's just pretty high up the rankings. Maybe Munoz, even though he's coming off a loss. But he definitely needs to step up in competition. I'm curious to see his development. And if he can really insert himself firmly into the top 10 of middleweight. Lorenz Larkin, great fighter, still a good prospect. But, I mean, the hole in his game, I guess. And I picked him to win, too. But, just I guess hindsight is 20/20 here. He has this tendency to really pick his shots to his detriment. It's he's always looking for the perfect strike. you know. And a lot of guys, like someone Tavares, who just has higher output than him, is probably going to win in the judge scorecards. I mean, if Tavares is landing a lot, or excuse me, Larkin's landing a lot, like he did against like Chris Camozzi, for example, he's going to win. Or like Robbie Lawler even. But, you know, other times, a guy with like high output and whatnot, then that really stays busy, will probably get the decision win over Larkin, unless Larkin like drops his opponents. It's like, he's not necessarily looking for the knockout punch per se, but just like that perfectly timed strike. The perfectly timed outside leg kick. He doesn't throw enough of them. His output is just really low. It's not like he's looking for that one punch knockout per se, but he's definitely conserving his energy and conserving his strike count for like really extremely well timed strikes. I think he'd probably need more mid-level guys at this point. You know, give him like an Andrew Craig. It would be really fun. Lawrence Larkin versus Uriah Hall would be kind of cool, even though Hall's coming off a win. Who else is coming off a loss? Jeez, I can't really think of too many guys coming off losses in the mid-tier. But yeah, you know, just some more mid-level guys for Larkin. Hopefully he can turn things around. He's been... I mean, I thought he should have gotten the win over Carmon. But as of right now, he's like loss, win, you know. Or something like that, like win, loss, something to that nature with Lawrence Larkin. He's still pretty young. I think he's only like, 26, 27, 28. His takedown defense and overall grappling have shown improvement. And even though he is a very good striker, it really is a case of output for him. Next fight off that, TJ Dillashaw beat Mike Easton by unanimous decision. Great showing from TJ Dillashaw, man. This guy's kickboxing is looking great. One thing I really like about him, too, is his ability to stay in the pocket was really good as well. I was really surprised about that. His wrestling's on point. Easton's got a chin, man, but, you know, the fact of the matter is, Dillashaw was just one class higher than Easton. I mean, I think Easton's ceiling is pretty apparent now, you know, like, he's kind of at that border of the top 10, maybe more of like top 10 to 15 type of guy. He's good, but, you know, he's just... I think one of the problems with Easton is his ability to really put it all together isn't that great. There's certain things I like. He scrambles really well. I mean, he had his back taken. You know, managed to recover half guard. I mean, and I think he managed to get back to his feet too, if I'm not mistaken, a couple times. So, I mean, if he could ever put it all together, I think he'd be a lot better than he is right now. But as of right now, you know, Dillashaw's a guy that's definitely putting it all together. There are some parts of his stand-up that still get a bit reckless, but otherwise, you know, really good. Lots of high output too. Lots of diversity in his striking, and he mixes in his wrestling really well. One of the problems with bantamweight is there's not many guys you can fight. I think the next logical guy, honestly, would be Takeya Mizugaki, because Mizugaki's coming off of like a 3-fight win streak, I think. Deshaw's already fought a Sunshao. A rematch wouldn't be too bad. You know, he can get the win over Sunshao versus Rivera. Otherwise, like, I can't really think of too many guys that Dillashaw should be fighting. That's coming off a win. I mean, I could say Michael McDonald, TJ Dillashaw, but Michael McDonald's coming off he's coming off the loss to Faber. And then there's other guys like Jorgensen or Pickett that are moving down to flyweight. So I can't really say. So there's a lot of guys that I can't really say that he should fight next. Geez, at this point I don't even know in the UFC who's a top 10 in bantamweight. That's around his level. So yeah, I think Mizugaki's the best choice for him. with Easton, I think this is like a 3-fight losing streak now, 2 or 3. Because he lost to Pickett before this. And then I think he lost a fight before that too. So he needs just a win over like some mid-level guy, you know. A Johnny Bedford or Jesus. Who else is there? You know. Just I don't want to like I don't want to single Bedford out because there's a lot of other guys he can fight. Geez, who are some of the guys that, you know, just Will Chope. Who else? You know, just guys that are coming off a loss, pretty much. That are like mid to lower level guys. Would be good for Easton. Very curious to see where Dillashaw goes from here too. I don't know if I don't have favor beating Burrell. So it looks like Dillashaw is kind of like the next hope for Team Alpha Male to eventually get a UFC title. So that storyline is actually very interesting because he looks like he does have the skill set for it. He has a skill set to get a title shot. I don't know if he beats a guy like a Burrell though. No, I don't think he beats Burrell though. Next fight after that, Yoel Romero beat Derek Brunson by TKO in the 3rd round. And I gotta say, I was actually really impressed with Brunson here. He did gas out though, which is something I've seen from Brunson before. His striking is improving a lot actually. He's using the head kick really well. He used the head kick against Brian Houston and now Yoel Romero. But, his stand-up's actually been improving. I was actually impressed with what I saw from him. And then he managed to take down Yoel Romero as well. But, man, Yoel Romero's really fun to watch. He does have a lot of holes. He does have holes in his game. Despite having really strong wrestling pedigree and accolades, obviously it's not the strongest transition. His wrestling didn't transition that well into MMA in the sense that like his takedown defense still needs some work. Honey Marks managed to take him down. Derek Brunson took him down. Also, Romero was also trying a lot of the outside trip on Brunson and wasn't hitting it, you know. So he's a good wrestler per se, but he's not like the way it transitioned hasn't made him like a fantastic wrestler in MMA per se. Unlike some of the other guys that have strong wrestling backgrounds and it transitions well to MMA. His boxing though, it's on point. His fights are, like I said, really fun to watch. He changes tempo a lot, and it works to his detriment sometimes. Probably helps his gas tank because he's all slow and lackadaisical, and all of a sudden he explodes. The problem is, a lot of times when he's slow and lackadaisical, a lot of times his opponent will catch him during that time when he's more or less just getting lazy, you know. This was also one of the better comeback victories too. I thought Brunson was up 2 rounds, and Romero put a beating on, just that the finishing sequence was really good with the left hooks and whatnot, dropped him. The elbows, the ref should have probably stopped it pretty earlier in the fight. I think Brunson actually broke his jaw in this fight. But yeah, there's also a question here of 12 to 6 elbows. Because Romero looked like he was doing some 12 to 6 elbows on his kidneys. I think it's a dumb rule, and at the very least, it should be 12 to 6 elbows on the head of an opponent. That should be illegal, but otherwise, I liked what I saw from Brunson here. I think he should just fight more lower to mid-tier guys in the division. With Romero, he's not really a prospect. He's 36 years old. Still has holes in his game, but definitely, I think what you see from him now is pretty much what you're going to get for the rest of his career. I can't really say that the guy's improving. I honestly don't think he's improving, but he's high level nonetheless. As far as the next fight goes for him, you could give him Brad Tavares. That wouldn't be a bad fight for him at all, actually. I would like to see him get someone hot, a step up in competition, though. Bosch, Munoz, Kennedy, whenever Jacare versus Carmon, someone like that would be pretty good for Romero. Okay, next fight, I thought John Moraga beat Dustin Ortiz by split decision. This fight was a bit telling, I guess, of because with Moraga he got a flyweight title shot, but you can tell his ground game, especially his game off his back, isn't that great. His stand-up's good and it's solid. Dustin Ortiz definitely needs work in the stand-up. His hands are really down. He almost Jardines it, kind of, not as bad. His wrestling and grappling though are really good. I think a lot of people gave Dustin Ortiz rounds 1 and 3. I watched the fight twice. I watched pretty much this whole card twice. And the second time I saw it, I was like, wow, yeah, Moraga in that third round was definitely doing a lot of damage to Ortiz. And I can definitely see it nullifying or counterbalancing Dustin Ortiz's wrestling and takedown he managed getting at the end of the round and his overall top control. It's tough to say with Moraga, how far he goes. His stand-up's good. His takedown defense is good, but not great. And his game off his back definitely needs some work. And it's hard to say who he should fight next. I mean, should he get a Louis Smolka, who's coming off a win, or should he get maybe a Justin Scoggins? Do you use him now for other prospects, or do you still treat him kind of like a guy that can get another title shot? He doesn't seem like a guy. There's certain types of style matchups that I think would make it hard for him to get another title shot, to be perfectly honest with you. But there are good fights for him. If he fights like a Jorgensen, that'd be fun. I forgot who Ian McCall's fighting next. I guess you can give some of those guys that are kind of higher up there. I think Campazano's fighting Daryl Montague or something like that. John Moraga versus the winner of that would be good. And Dustin Ortiz versus the loser of that would be good as well. I'm actually, I think Dustin Ortiz has potential to be a top 10 talent and eventual title challenger, to be honest with you. Okay, next fight, I thought Cole Miller beat Sam Cecilia by rear naked choke in the second round. The thing with Cecilia is he had a very one-dimensional game plan going into this fight. It was like he was just looking for the right hand or something like that. He has a good chin, but, eventually, he's just getting tagged and tagged, especially with the right hand. I like that Cole Miller was fighting long, using a lot of straight punches. I think he hit him successfully with a front snap kick to the face and kept using that move a lot. And when Cole Miller has someone, he's one of the few guys, Faber's really good at this too. When he has someone beat up and hurt, he is really good at, taking the back or, going for that finish. He's very good at that. He did that against Ross Pearson, But yeah, he's really good at going for the finish, and not a lot of fighters have that in them. After the fight, Miller called out Donald Clanboy Cerrone. Cerrone has said that he is thinking about cutting down to 145. It's not a fight I'm that interested in seeing, to be perfectly honest with you. Cole Miller's showing some consistency, though, because he'll win some good fights, and then he'll lose a Nam Fan. He'll lose to Efrain Escudero. He just loses to guys that he should probably beat. Lost to Gambarian, even though I thought I thought he should have got the win there, to be honest with you. Lost to Gambarian, you know. I mean, he addressed it, though. I mean, and he looked improved. So I like what I see from the guy. At 145, I mean, you could go with the Conor McGregor fight, I suppose. So he did call out him. But, you know, other fights for him that'd be fun would be like Max Holloway. Would be a good one. Who else? I think Bermudez is fighting someone. Jeez, if Bermudez is fighting, like Bermudez would be kind of cool versus Cole Miller. But yeah, you know, there are. Oh, he's fighting Lent. Yeah. If you want to give him a step up in competition, you know, Miller versus the winner of Lentz versus Bermudez, or the winner of Jeremy Stevens versus Darren Elkins, wouldn't it be the worst fights for Cole Miller at this point? Count up the prelims: Ramsey Nejim. Oh, well, actually, it's Sam Cecilia. I don't know. I mean, he won his last fight against Pepe, and then he lost here. I mean, I suppose you can justify him getting another shot, but I think he's only won one of his last 3 or 4 fights, you know? He's a fun fighter. I don't think there's a fight I've seen of his that hasn't been fun to watch. He can beat some very low-tier guys, so, I mean, if you want to keep him, give him some of the very low-tier guys. If not, he might get cut from the UFC, you know? But they haven't been cutting guys lately, so I don't know if they'll cut him. Down to the prelims. Ramsey Nejim beat Justin Edwards by unanimous decision. Good win for Nejim, and he really needed this. Showed some improved striking, but he's still showing to be a bit hittable still. Edwards, you know, his striking needs work. He gets off balance a lot of times. His ground game's good. He goes for that guillotine a lot. To his benefit and to his detriment. I think Edwards, I know he's coming off the loss of Brandon Thatch. I think he's on like a 2-fight losing streak now. I don't know if they keep him either. You know, like I said, the UFC has not been cutting fighters. He doesn't, like I said, I don't, you know, I'm not in favor. I'm not the type of guy that revels in guys losing their jobs or anything like that. But from a business standpoint, so I'm looking at it from, he just doesn't serve a role in the UFC. I mean, he's not particularly an action fighter. He's not a gatekeeper. He's not a prospect per se. And that's why I feel from a business standpoint that, you know, the UFC might want to be better off just cutting him. With Nejim, though, like I said, much needed win. His stand-up was improving. He's a good wrestler, too. I like some of his takedowns that he did. He didn't wrestle a lot against Edwards, but, you know, he's an interesting prospect. I don't know if he'll ever be like a top 10 guy or anything like that. I just don't see it. But he should just fight more lower to mid-tier guys of the division. Yeah, next fight, I thought Elias Silverio beat Isaac Valley Flag by unanimous decision. You know, that knee, I think, barely hit the chin. I thought it was more chest that, you know, got the point deduction. I like what I see from Silverio, though, man. I think this guy is a very solid prospect. He looked good in welterweight against Zhao Zaffarino. Now he's about Flag, you know, not like some world beater or anything, but a solid mid-tier fighter. And he pretty much had his way with them. I think he beat him pretty much in the stand-up, out-wrestled him a lot, and beat him up while he was on top. I like what I see from the guy. He moves laterally. I noticed that in the Zaffarino fight too, and in this Valley Flag fight. His movement's pretty good. I'm speaking really well of the guy. It's just I don't see many parts of his game that are bad. His cardio looked pretty good. Stand-up's solid. Wrestling's not too bad. His ground game's not too bad either. I mean, there's really not much you can really say about Silverio. That isn't, you know, that isn't bad or anything like that. He's still very much an unknown guy at this point. You can give him another prospect like a Yancy Medeiros maybe. That'd be a pretty cool fight. He's fighting at 155. So, geez, I'm kind of thinking if anyone can test his ground game at this point. That's coming off a win, but I can't think of anyone at this point right now. But more like lower to mid tier guys for Severia. Isaac Valley Flag, he beat, I think it's Eve Edwards and lost to Severia. He's a mid tier guy. He's kind of a good gatekeeper because he's really tough. He's always pushing forward. He's definitely the type of guy that his opponent will have to work the whole 15 minutes to against. When you fight Valley Flag. So just more lower to mid tier guys for Valley Flag as well. Next fight after that, Trevor Smith beat Brian Houston by a split decision. I think Brian Houston's probably going to get cut after this. He doesn't have a lot of experience. And, that's 2 losses in a row in the UFC for him. Trevor Smith managed to keep his job. Stand-up defense needs some work. He's a good action fighter, though. He can definitely play that role really well. It's funny he went to decision. Most of his wins are not by decision. So he gets a lot. Most of his wins are actually by submission. Trevor Smith's a fun action fighter. Just more lower to mid-tier guys for him. Next fight after that, we got Luis Smolka beating Alptekin Oskalik by unanimous decision. I like what I see from Smolka. His stand-up's good. His ability to scramble is really good. Just like what I see from him. With Oskalik, his wrestling's good, but his stand-up still needs a lot of work. This fight really showed it. His cardio didn't look great either. With Oskalik, just more lower to mid-tier guys of the division. He's coming off a loss. And with Smolka, just more lower to mid-tier guys coming off a win. Okay, next fight after that, Vince Pichel beat Garrett Whiteley by unanimous decision. Not much I can say about this fight. Whiteley is on 2 fight losing streak. Should probably get cut at this point. With Pichel, he needed much needed win. Just more lower to mid-tier guys in the division for him. And finally, Beneil Dariush beat Charlie Brenneman by a rear naked choke in the first round. I picked Brenneman to win. I thought he'd be able to use his wrestling to win the fight, but one thing about Brenneman, man, his stand-up defense is not very good. Darius managed to drop him and choke him out. Looks like a pretty decent under-the-radar prospect so far, and Brenneman, it's a good litmus test for prospects at this point, and Darius just passed with flying colors, Just more lower to mid-tier guys for both of these guys. So that's it for my UFC Fight Night 35 post-fight analysis. If you have any comments, just leave them below. And that's it for MMA for you. Thank you guys very much.